Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video I'm going to be going over the retrofit tool that is on the website, showing you how it works, how to use it, telling you some of the limitations to what it can and cannot do, and just installing a projector in this reflector here. So the projector that I'm going to be using is our 3-inch projector. This does have the same layout as a mini D2S or a G5 as far as the actual bolt patterns go. We do sell them on the site, but once again, this tool will work with anything mini D2S. It also works with a Q5. I'm not as familiar with the Q5 itself, but that is another size that this one does work with. It will not work for 2.5-inch projectors like the mini H1s, so keep that in mind if you go mini H1. From what I've seen, I've not really had to do nut and bolt with the 2.5s. They're really light projectors, so there's not a lot of stress on them when you install. They're a short projector, so generally you don't have to recess them. There's exceptions to that, but by and large, I haven't really had to do nut and bolt with them. So for me, this has worked out fine. It'd be nice if it had the 2.5 in it, but it does not, so keep that in mind. Custom Brackets and Designs has their style that I've been using for a while. Biggest drawback being that it's plastic, so it does kind of wear out after a while. The biggest difference between that and this is obviously the solid metal construction, so wearing is not really a factor on this. They've also got the extended guides for your drill bits, so getting it at the right angle, not a problem. It really just guides it straight in. You don't have any issues. There is a level on the front as well, if that helps, but most of the time I'm doing it visually, just trying to line it up, figure out where everything is. And of course, many different adapters and sizes. Not everything is here. I can't remember which one it was, but there was one size in particular that I didn't have. But most of this stuff you can kind of wing it and get it in there if it doesn't fit. In this case, the H4 size is right there, and it works perfect for these Forester lights. So as far as actually using it, you will need a drill bit, and it's got to be somewhat of a longer drill bit. I mean, like this is a 3.5-inch drill bit, and it's plenty. I even picked up one of these. I don't even know how long that is, but I picked one of those up at local Lowe's Hardware, and just in case if I ever need one that's a little bit longer. But the one that I'm using in this case is the Irwin 532, 5/32, and it is 3.5-inch long, 88 millimeters. And you can get that, like I said, I got this from my local Lowe's, but you can buy it online and stuff like that. 5/32 fits pretty good. You can go a little bit bigger. The 5/32 does have a little bit of play in it, but for me, I think that's a little better. I don't want anything that's super tight. 5/32 work. I'm using 8/32 by 1.5-inch, and your length is going to vary. You might need 1 inch, you might need 2 inches, just depending on how yours is going to sit inside the light. So you have to keep that in mind. But obviously that's all extra stuff that you got to get. The kit itself is just going to be this, along with the hardware here. So I'll show you how to use that. Now in this particular case, on this light, I actually remove the Q5 part on the bottom here, and it just comes off that easy. So far, I haven't had a use for the Q5 size, so I just put it in the box like that, and normally just leave it right like this. This part, you've got this little expansion nut here, and it's a threaded shaft with a nut in it, and it basically can just adjust your gap between the between this and the actual frame. So that's what I use that for. And then put your washer in. Figure out about how much gap you're going to need, which actually right where I'm at, I'm good. I mean, the idea is you don't want any of the guides actually touching the frame, because then that'll cock it a little bit off center. The nice thing about these is they're basically self-leveling, so as far as left to right, up, down, all that stuff. It should be solid with the actual housing shape. So as long as you don't have anything touching on the inside, then you should be good. And then if it is touching, all you got to do is just reach in there, spin that little nut there, and it will bring it out or bring it in based on what you're doing. Obviously you don't want to be too far away, but you don't want to be too close. So just adjust it till you get where you need to be. Then you've got your nut on the back side here, and that will actually line up with the holes on the back of this reflector housing. So then on the back side, you've got your spacers, and there's different ones to choose from here depending on what you've got. There's this one here, it's a little bit longer. I got this one here, which is what I use for the Foresters, and it just slides right on like that. And then you've got the nut. The nut will screw right in like so. You tighten it down just a little bit, and a screwdriver helps here. I didn't bring one over with me because I don't normally need it. You can get it finger tight, and that thing is where you need it. You're good to go. If you want to try to torque down on it, just a screwdriver to the front here, and then you can hold this by hand, but if you need to, it does have a hex there, so you can actually use a pair of pliers or something like that. But yeah, so that is secured now. You can see it's pretty solid. If you go to drill your holes, it will be really good. Not trying to move on you. Now, like I said, visually speaking, you're generally going to want to still try to eyeball the inside, figure out where your natural line is on the projector reflector housing. Sometimes they're cut at an angle, they're not quite straight, so you can't just go based on the bottom necessarily. Sometimes you can. Sometimes you can go on the back and just kind of visually inspect the lines on there versus the bumps in the frame. So like I'll look here and I'm seeing there's a line here inside the frame, and it looks like it kind of correlates to the back. And then I also see there's a couple holes in the back there, so I'm going to line it up with that. And that is pretty darn good. And you're going to have a little bit of play with the nut and bolt method on the inside, so you can tweak just a little bit. So as long as you're pretty darn close, you've got enough play that you can get it dialed in and nailed in. Most of the time, unless you have the car, 100% is kind of hard to get without actually test fitting the light on the car before assembling everything. But that's the way that I've been doing it for a while now, and I haven't had any complaints with angle or anything like that. And any of the cars that I've done it on for my own personal use, I haven't had any issues with. So pretty confident the way that works. So next part is the actual drilling. So I'm going to go ahead and get my bit, go ahead and get the drill, and obviously make sure that you got the right, I know I need the 3.5s, but just look at your projector, figure out where those holes are. In the case of this one, you've got the 2 top holes and then the 2 side holes here, which are the 2 tops and the 2 sides down here. So I'm going to go in there. So that is the first one. And there it is. I've got 4 holes now on the back that are pretty darn good right there. And it just makes life a lot easier. I've used some of the plastic alignment tools that are out there. I actually still have a set, and those were really, really good, you know, when nothing else was out there. But the problem is that, you know, getting the angle of the drill right, and then the drill wants to, like, because this is a curved surface, you're not going straight, so the drill itself will want to creep inward as it's drilling. I mean, I've even once or twice actually broken the drill bits trying to keep it straight. You don't have that issue with this because you have those shafts. The shafts just keep that drill bit going straight in, even though you're drilling at an actual angle, because of the way that the reflector is curved. So it's something to keep in mind. One of the benefits to this style. Obviously, you know, cost is a factor. I think a lot of people look at it, you know, being about $100. Is it worth it? That's a question. Ultimately, the question is, how much are you going to use it? You know, like any good tool, sometimes the cheap option is better. Sometimes it's worth spending a little bit extra. How much you're going to use it is going to play a big role. But even if it's not something you're going to use on a regular basis, but you just don't want the headache, think of it like this, okay? If you mess up drilling your holes and you got to buy a whole new headlight housing, is that more than $100? Yeah. If that were to happen, in hindsight, you might say, shoot, I should have just bought the tool. It's that kind of thing. I don't know, you know, rolling fenders on a car. I've got a fender roller. I've used it once. I've still got it. I loan it to people. You know, I've seen the baseball bat tricks and stuff. I wasn't about to try that, so I bought the tool. It's that kind of thing. I can't say for sure if I was only doing one retrofit if I would buy the tool, but I can guarantee you if I messed up and then had to buy another headlight, I would have wished I bought the tool. So it's that, you know, I wouldn't blame you either way. Buy it or don't, use it or don't. But it is kind of nice to use something that works a lot better, especially if you're a first time at this. I've seen guys that can just freehand drill the holes without any guides, templates, or anything. Mad respect for people that can do that. I could definitely not without guides. But obviously, if you're new to this, you don't do it a whole lot. Having something like this is going to make life a lot easier. So that's something to consider. Obviously, factoring in the cost. But, so, now all you got to do is just remove that nut, remove that spacer, pull out the tool. I'll put my nut back on there so I don't lose anything. And I'm going to blow this out. In this case, I'm going to actually strip the chrome, paint it black, all that stuff, line up the projector, get it inside. I will do all that, stop the video, come back when I actually start putting this back in, and then show you the finishing part of the actual nut and bolt method, just in case you guys are new to that actual process. Alright, so everything is now painted, the chrome is stripped. One thing I did forget to mention, you're going to want to go ahead and remove part of your backing in between your screw holes, so that you can recess the projector in just a little bit. That way, like you see, I can have that backside hanging out just a little bit, and that'll give me the clearance that I need to get this further into the housing. Now the next part can kind of vary a little bit depending on which light you're doing. With these, sometimes what you have to do is you have to put these in, run a nut up to the top loosely like this, and that will keep it from trying to slide back on the actual screw. And then you'll do that for all four corners. So I went ahead and added the demon eye in as well, being that this build will be getting one. So keep that in mind. You're going to want to add that before you finish up with your nut and bolt, because you're actually using the same bolts to secure the demon eye, depending on which demon eye you're using. So now I'm going to go ahead and put this through. So you can see the way that with the size of the screw hole, the size of the drill bit that I use, and the size of the bolts that I'm using, it actually works out pretty well most of the time. I don't need to actually expand it out. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. In this case, these work pretty well just as is. It actually kind of holds it where it's supposed to be, so I can screw it in and it's secure, and I'll just keep recessing it back in about, well, it depends on the housing that you're using. In the case of the Forester, I'm going to go back probably another ½ inch to an inch, and that will clear the front. It will also make the shroud sit back a little bit further so that you can't see around it. And it will still not be deep enough in the housing that it's sticking out the back, which is important. So I'm going to keep recessing this one, and then I'll come back and I'll show you what I do on the back side just to secure it, because you don't want to leave it like this. You're going to want to do something to secure the back side of these bolts. Alright, so I've got it recessed right where I need it. I've lined it up with, you can kind of see there, but basically you want to make it level up and down. Obviously you're dealing with 4 points, so if you screw one point in more than another, it can offset it can make it go a little bit cockeyed one way or another, up, down, left, right. So you want to try to get it as level as you can by looking in there. It's not always as simple as just measuring the back of the bolts, because the back side may not be completely flat. So a lot of this is eyeballing it. A lot of it is trying to figure it out. If you do have access to the car, that's a big plus, because then you can put this back together, put it on the car, figure out where you're lining up at, and get it just dialed in perfectly. For most of us retrofitters, we don't have that luxury. So a lot of it is eyeballing, getting as close as you can. And you do it a couple hundred times, you get pretty good at it. So now the issue is the back side. If you leave it like this, you know, shocks and vibrations and everything else, eventually these are going to break free. So you can't leave it like that. So what I do is I secure it on the back. I don't use a nut because I want something that actually secures it and bonds it to the housing itself. JB Weld is very popular for this. Most people use that. It's a great way to go. Nothing wrong with it. It does take a little bit of time to dry. I like to kind of knock these out a little bit faster. So what I use is the Fix-It stick by Odie. This is the exact same thing as Steel Stick by JB Weld. It's just a 2-part putty epoxy. It dries in minutes and ready to go right into the car. So for me, this works a heck of a lot faster than JB Weld, which might take, you know, a couple minutes to dry still, but, you know, a little bit more time. You got to pre-mix, and it's a little more work. This, I just pull it right out, grab a little bit of that stick, just enough to cover the 4 bolts. Mix it up by hand, and you're mainly just trying to secure it to the light itself and the base. So there it is. I got them on the back of the bolts, and it will cure. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit these, the tops of the bolts with a Dremel just to get them smooth. You're going to want to make sure the clearance is good between the back of the reflector and your actual housing. So you know how much room you have to play with. You know, it's going to vary based on the light that you're using. But in this case, I'm just going to knock these down just a little bit. I know the Foresters have a you know, almost an inch back there. 3/4 inch, something like that. So I got plenty of room if I just knock the tops off. So I'm gonna let it dry, knock the tops off, and then I'm ready to put it all back in. So that's it. That's a finished nut and bolt method. A little bit drawn out if you've done it before. Most of this stuff was kind of monotonous. So a lot of you guys are probably just kind of curious how this works. So the first couple minutes should have covered that for you. But for those of you that are new to the whole nut and bolt method, that's how I do it. And with the help of the tool, honestly, cutting the holes has become the easiest part of the whole job, as you see. I mean, you know, lining up the stuff, putty and all that, that took more time than it did to just drill the freaking holes. This thing is so nice, so easy. What used to be the most nerve-wracking part of the whole thing, drilling the holes, has become just super easy. Hopefully that shows the nut and bolt method and the benefit to the actual tool and what it can do for you. They are on the site. They are available for purchase and ready to ship as of this video, at least. Definitely subscribe if you're not. Like the video if you liked it. Comment if you have any comments on the process. And if you have any questions, hit us up. Hit me up directly on our Facebook page or Instagram. Even email if you prefer that. And I will do my best to get back to you and answer those questions as best I can. Thank you for watching. And until the next video.